eating 1 to 2 meals a day, trying to make my food stretch as far as I can make it go.
I don't think the public is used to teachers being rowdy.
I don't know. I'm not a politician.
A New York Times report that the FBI launched an investigation into whether President Trump acted in Russia's interests, and a Washington Post report that Trump concealed notes from his one-on-one meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin, meant Trump had to give answers like this today.
I never worked for Russia, and you know that answer better than anybody. I never worked for Russia. Not only did I never work for Russia, I think it's a disgrace that you even asked that question, because it's a whole big fat hoax.
French President Emmanuel Macron hasn't managed to stop the Yellow Vest protests that are now in week 9, so he's trying something new: delegating. His office published a 20-question survey and opened a period of national debate, asking for thoughts on which taxes to lower, what services to cut, and how to pay for environmental policies. Americans now have a 1 in 96 chance of dying from an opioid overdose, a fate that for the first time has become more likely than dying in a car accident. Thousands of people across Poland attended vigils for Paweł Adamowicz, the mayor of Gdansk, who died today. Police charged his assassin with murder after he rushed the stage during a charity fundraiser and stabbed Adamowicz in the chest, then told the crowd he'd been wrongfully imprisoned under a government controlled by Adamowicz's former party's civic platform. When Ohio's new governor was sworn in at his home at midnight, Mike DeWine didn't just take the oath with his hand on one measly Bible. He used 9, each copy apparently of sentimental value, while his wife was stuck with the heavy lifting.
Tens of thousands of teachers and staffers from America's second largest public school system, the Los Angeles Unified School District, walked off the job today. They gathered despite the rain to call for better pay, smaller classes, and more positions for nurses, counselors, and librarians. The district has made concessions, but the union says they don't go far enough, and the district says doing more will force it into bankruptcy. Unlike last year's strikes in a series of red states, this one is taking place in one of the bluest states of all. The student population of the LA Unified School District looks a lot like it does in South Los Angeles, where Henry Garcia teaches elementary school.
We're talking about a community that is predominantly Black and brown. A lot of our families qualify for free and reduced lunch. A lot of our families have 2-3 jobs. So students bring that all into the classroom.
Nearly everyone agrees that LA's public schools are badly underfunded. The district has $1.8 billion in reserves, which it says it needs to cover teachers' salaries and benefits in the future. But teachers like Henry say their schools need the money now.
A lot of our schools don't have a full-time nurse. We don't have enough counselors. That raises huge ethical concerns because so many of our students are living in poverty, and our job as a school is to respond to those needs.
And do you feel like you can do that given the circumstances right now?
It isn't easy to create an environment where students feel comfortable. So when you learn that the district has a reserve of nearly $2 billion, the question is, why isn't that money being used to fully fund our schools and to actually meet the needs of our students?
We, the people, not the politicians, are still the boss.
The underfunding of LA schools goes back to the taxpayers' revolt of 1978, when California voters passed Proposition 13. The ballot measure capped local property taxes and, as a result, gutted school budgets statewide. California now ranks near the bottom in the country on per-pupil spending and student-teacher ratios. So when the LA Teachers Union asked its members to authorize a strike last year, the response was overwhelming. 98% voted yes. There's a reason for that. While LA's schools are struggling, a lot of teachers believe that rather than fix them, the school district would prefer to abandon them to charters and other privatization schemes. Over the years, the LA school district has slashed the budget for basic support staff. There are now fewer than 400 nurses for roughly 900 school campuses.
Teachers defeated! We'll never be defeated!
Stephanie Yellen-Mednick is a school nurse in the San Fernando Valley who's helped organize her colleagues for the strike. She used to work at one school full-time. Now she splits her time between 4.
I think we're a little nervous about this and very scared in a way because it's not something we really want to do.
It's pretty surprising to hear that there are so many schools that only have a nurse come in once a week.
Once a week,
It's like a little bit, how does that even work? I mean, what happens if the nurse is only there on a Thursday? What happens when a kid gets sick on a Monday? I mean,
Don't have an emergency on a Monday.
It's not just the nurse just being there one day a week. We have no confidentiality in many of our offices. At one of the schools, the nurse works in a hallway or under the stairwell, a closet, the bathroom. When you're sitting with a girl that's not sure whether she's pregnant or not, I mean, that's something we deal with even in middle school, or child abuse. It's very difficult to deal with child abuse when you have an office full to try to close a door to talk to a child, let alone if you don't have a door.
Parents and the private sector have also tried to plug budget holes by raising extra funds for individual schools. But that's created a divide in the district, and Martha Infante Thorpe, a social studies teacher, has seen both sides of it.
I want to say I was 21.
She taught poor students for over 20 years in South LA. Now she's teaching middle-class kids in the Valley. But even the extra funds raised by the parents at her new school can't fix the structural problem. Martha still has class sizes in the 40s, compared to the national average of 26. And this is what you had to come up with, literally to just fit them into the space.
Exactly. And I still wasn't satisfied because the kids are still really crowded, and maybe I can get rid of my teacher desk and that'll give them more space. The conditions are not allowing us to get the best results from our students. And we know what conditions we need because we're in the classroom every single day. So I know when I'm teaching a class of 40 plus students, I'm not the most effective teacher.
Is there any concern among teachers or within the union that the strike could backfire in some way, make the teachers look bad? Is that something that gets talked about?
There is always that concern. I don't think the public is used to teachers being rowdy and being activists. In fact, some of the comments I've received on my social media postings are, "You're too strident, you need to speak more softly." We're done speaking softly. We're not speaking softly anymore.
President Trump flew here to New Orleans today to give a speech to the American Farm Bureau Federation's annual convention. And he wasn't shy about admitting that he's not an expert farmer himself.
Do you all know what prairie potholes are? Yes, you do. I don't, but it sounds bad.
Trump very clearly was among friends here, and he spent the first half hour of the speech hitting political topics that had nothing to do with agriculture.
And then the media, the fake news, they'll say, he got no standing ovations. You know why? Because everybody stayed standing. Where do you see that? It's true. Oh, they'll do it. They'll figure something out. They say it's medieval, a wall. It is medieval. So is a wheel. I always say a wheel. Wheels work and walls work. There are some things you can't beat.
This isn't surprising. The love affair between Trump and rural America has more to do with a shared conservative ideology than it does with shared experience. These farmers like that Trump, at least, showed up to speak to them. But there's a disconnect brewing here, because Trump's policies don't suggest he's really listening. As much as Trump's been a warrior for rural values, he's been kind of a nightmare for rural economics. Trump's immigration crackdown has made it tough for farmers to find the labor they need to harvest their crops. According to the American Farm Bureau Federation itself, at least half of farm laborers in the country today are unauthorized immigrants. And Trump has made deporting all undocumented immigrants a priority for his administration. Trump's trade war with China has hurt farmers' income by hiking costs for the machinery they need and causing prices for their crops to plummet. According to the USDA, net farm income for 2018 is forecast to decline $10.8 billion from 2017 when adjusted for inflation. That's a 14% drop. The question now is whether, in spite of all this, farmers stick with Trump in the numbers that he needs. And the shutdown is going to force that question. Selwyn Justice is a citrus farmer in Arizona. Like a lot of farmers, he depends on the Department of Agriculture.
Loans is a huge issue. Farming is a huge investment up front, and you hope to God that you're going to get something back out of that. And when you've got loan programs that aren't available for you, that means you can't buy seed, you can't buy fuel, you can't buy infrastructure, and you can't afford that out of pocket because you've got all your resources tied up into the crop already. You got nothing to do. You can't do anything.
The Trump administration set up a $12 billion bailout fund to help farmers hurt by its trade war with China. But many farmers can't get paid out of that while the government is shut down. Most Department of Agriculture staff are considered non-essential, so they've been furloughed, leaving no one to approve USDA loan applications and no money to pay for them. Still, farmers just like Trump, and most of them are willing to give him the benefit of the doubt, even if his policies are admittedly bad for their bottom line. Are you a Trump supporter?
Yes, I mean, it's, I'm a U.S. president supporter. I believe in working with governments. I know we have Republicans and Democrats throughout the process, but if we don't work with who we have at the different levels, and we'll never make any progress. There's going to be a stalemate. In our country, the wheel does not stop turning.
Farmers are resilient. We're patient. This waiting stuff is nothing new for us, and we live in a society that things come so quickly, immediate, but we're okay with waiting.
We have friends on both sides of the aisle, and the president is a bit polarizing at times, but I can say that his efforts to try to secure the border, I don't think that's a Democrat or a Republican issue. I think that should be an American issue.
Right before the government shut down, a Farm Journal Pulse poll found Trump's support among farmers at 76% nationwide. If today's rally, and it definitely felt like a rally, is any indication, that number isn't going anywhere, at least for now. The farmers I talked to had a pretty consistent message. They're prepared to be patient, and they can handle a little pain.
This medicine we're taking is a little upsetting to the stomach economically, and we have issues. But I have a 12-year-old son at home. I think that what the administration and what these guys are trying to do is trying to make sustainable agricultural policy for generations to come. And I support him in those efforts, and that's why I support the president.
Even beyond agriculture, the economic consequences of the shutdown are undeniably bad. Here's why. Let's take a government worker in the National Park Service who just got furloughed. She isn't currently working, but she'll eventually get her back wages. That means she'll essentially have been paid to do nothing, and that's incredibly expensive. The 2013 shutdown, which lasted only 16 days, cost the government $2 billion in lost productivity. In the meantime, though, since that worker isn't getting a paycheck, she has to cut back on her spending. That means the local restaurants and stores that depended on her as a customer have less business, which means they in turn will be buying fewer supplies and inventory. On top of not paying its workers, the Park Service is also not paying the companies it contracts with to do things like build new visitor centers or repave park roads. So those companies aren't going to be buying construction materials or hiring carpenters and masons, making unemployment higher than it otherwise would be. If we consider all of this lack of action and the ripple effects of these things not happening, approximately $6.5 billion a week is being withheld from the economy. Of course, the federal budget is immense, and the U.S. economy is still in good shape. But as the old saying goes, $1 billion here and $1 billion there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. The White House is trying to spin the shutdown as a chance for government employees to just take it easy.
A huge share of government workers were going to take vacation days, say between Christmas and New Year's. And then we have a shutdown, and so they can't go to work, and so then they have the vacation, but they don't have to use their vacation days. And then they come back, and then they get their back pay, then they're, in some sense, they're better off.
But it's not much of a vacation for the 432 workers who lined up on Saturday in a Washington, D.C. parking lot to pick up donations from a pop-up charity food bank.
You have your ID ready so we can expedite. Perfect.
They include federal employees who've been coming in every day without a paycheck, and contractors who won't get paid back.
Well, I've been with the government for about 2 years.
I've been working for the federal government for about 3 months now.
Will be 10 years in May.
This is my third shutdown.
This is my second shutdown.
It's the longest, and I'm not getting paid at all. Nothing. Zero, zilch, nada.
I hope I get back pay.
Oh, I will not receive back pay. Absolutely not. So you adjust.
It feels surreal.
I've just been trying to keep busy without kind of losing my mind.
Life is a roller coaster. Sometimes you have ups, sometimes you have downs. So it's not the end of the world. It's like a nightmare that won't end. Like you're fighting your best fight to stay positive and to stay encouraged. But it's like every single day, you know, I got to get up and make a plan.
It feels like your job has no purpose.
I have a part-time job, so it's helping to supplement some of my income, but it will be tough.
I'm eating 1 to 2 meals a day, trying to make my food stretch as far as I can make it go because I don't know when this shutdown's going to end. This is the first time I've ever had to go to a food bank, but definitely not too proud to ask for help during this time.
I have gotten references for substitute teaching positions. I've also started my own little small business.
I started going back to the gym. A lot of binge watching, Netflix. A lot of it is just waiting and dealing with the stress that comes with it. I might have to talk to family for support.
We don't know when this is going to end.
You just don't know.
My biggest fear is not getting food. Really it.
I think the biggest fear is the longevity. If this thing lasts past February, March, April, that's going to look very dire.
I don't have a big fear about this. It's all a matter of adjusting. President Trump should do what's right for the workers. People are going hungry, people are losing their mortgages, people will be homeless.
You should just reopen the government.
Step outside the White House and see how people are living.
Open the government.
The American people should know that federal employees care about their jobs.
We should not be used as pawns for any political maneuvering. A common thing I'm hearing from people who are not affected by the shutdown is that this is an appropriate means to any political end, but if it happened to you, I guarantee you would feel differently.
Prime Minister Theresa May visited a pottery factory in the pro-Brexit northern city of Stoke-on-Trent today to try to convince Parliament not to kill her deal for leaving the EU when ministers vote tomorrow.
Back the deal tomorrow, and that work can start on Wednesday. Fail, and we face the risk of leaving without a deal, or the even bigger risk of not leaving at all.
May's insinuation that Brexit won't happen without her deal isn't true. And that's the problem. Britain will almost certainly fall off the Brexit cliff on March 29th without a plan for what comes next, plunging the country's economy into chaos and potentially upending the lives and livelihoods of millions of British workers.
10 to 6 at the yard. Look around the vehicle to make sure everything's okay. And then normally I just go.
Tony Fox has been a truck driver for 47 years. 2 months from now, his life could change radically if Britain crashes out of the EU without a deal. The culmination of a decision he didn't agree with in the first place.
I voted to stay. Like, it's convenient what happens now. It's easy, isn't it? You do your paper check and get your ticket or whatever here, and then you just go round and wait for the ferry.
All drivers and their passengers are requested to return to their vehicles now for embarkation.
The Port of Dover is the gateway for 20% of the goods that enter and leave the UK. About 50,000 freight vehicles pass through the port on ferries every day. Today, Tony's taking 3 tons of aluminium to Belgium. As long as Britain is part of the EU, his crossing is seamless, because there aren't any tariffs or customs checks between member states. But under a no-deal Brexit, World Trade Organization rules would kick in overnight, meaning customs inspections on every vehicle, reverting back to a system that Tony doesn't miss.
Well, when I first started it, you know, you had T-forms, paperwork to fill in and present to customs and everything, and you had to stop at all the borders and pay your fuel tax and etc., etc. Now it's easy at the moment. It's sort of straightforward. You can go where you want, really.
By one estimate, if customs delayed each truck by just 70 additional seconds, the wait to board the ferry could reach 6 days, putting the UK's food and medicine supplies at risk. It's a radical change that Tony's still trying to get his mind around.
We don't know if it's going to be harder. They're saying, yes, it could be, and there could be queues, but nobody knows yet until, you know, it all happens on the 29th of March. All we can do is wait and see. That's a good day, the 29th of March. It's my birthday.
The trucking and fuel company Tony works for, Matthews, is based in Belgium. Its trucks make 100 channel crossings per week. The UK government's own assessment says no deal would leave the British economy more than 9% smaller, a cost of tens of billions of dollars. Owner Eric Matthews says he isn't surprised.
If Britain leaves the customs union, what impact will that have on businesses like yours?
Logically, it will be a high cost to us, but mainly I think it will be a high cost to the customer because we won't be able to sustain that cost.
So take the journey that we took today, for example. What would that journey be like under WTO rules?
Under WTO rules, it will be totally different. So we believe that there will be an awful lot of document problems on both sides of the water. Every night we see tens of trucks going from Rotterdam to London with flowers. If they don't know that it's going to arrive in time, fresh for the people that want to buy them in the morning, then if they don't know they can't do it, they won't do it, will they? Because the risk of not being able to deliver will be so high that it will have to be compensated with the price.
Do you think you'd be able to guarantee that?
No way. We, as a whole, we are already now saying to people, we've got a price carrying on the way we're doing, and we'll see what happens after Brexit.
At 67, Tony isn't sure if he'd even be able to keep working if the worst-case scenario comes true.
If you had to spend hours queuing to do that same journey that we've just done today, would this job be worth it for you?
No, it wouldn't be.
And that's because you get paid for the day, no matter how long it takes you?
Yes, in my circumstances, yes, that's right. But, you know, they're still arguing amongst themselves instead of sitting down and deciding the good or the bad points of this Brexit plan that we've achieved or managed to get. The ideal scenario would be to accept it and then deal with it afterwards. I don't know, I'm not a politician, so I don't get to decide, do I?
Hey, this is Chaz from Toro y Moi, and today I'm going to be talking about Freelance off my new album, Outer Peace.
No more shoes or socks, I only rock sandals. I can tell if I'm hip or getting old.
I went straight into this from a bagel shop, so my freelance career, this is it. That's why I named it that. It's like, I am my boss and I have to do it for myself.
Oh, walk on the water.
Something new that I tried was just pulling like lyrical and sonic references from other bands and making this sort of collaged thing. Instead of referencing Queen or something, I just reference Animal Collective. I feel like they are this generation's like fish or something. Like they're like subcultural gods. So you know those new crosswalk buttons? It's one of those things that go. I took one of those and just like put it on like a loop and just like made it pitch down. I recorded, a lot of stuff from my phone. It's a hollow body bass going through a wah pedal. It kind of gave this growly thing. So when you did the wah, it just has this like wah to it. It's like a funky Paul McCartney with like all leather, like red jacket, and he's gonna have like platform shoes. The pan flute, I want this sound to resonate with like Europe and like Asia and Africa and the States. I felt like that sound specifically had a world music sound.
Life is only wishing we could load it. Level up, you've got to make a bonus.
I kind of felt like I needed to resonate with the people who are creative and driven and kind of carve your own path just by using the internet as a tool. And it's kind of awesome, but it's dangerous and scary, and it's a hamster wheel. The harder you work, the faster it can come to you, but you're running just as fast. Just be aware of that.
What just happened?